All right. This is write once, read many. Victoria, if you want to talk for a sec while I get the link ready.
Sure. We did. We both did collages for Coil's chapter. Is yours like based around mine,
Yes,
like the same kind of idea or whatever?
mine is
Um,
directly based off of yours.
okay. I was struggling all week thinking about what I was gonna do for this chapter for the art, because it there wasn't like a good art style that came to mind because Coil isn't exactly um visually descriptive or anything like that. You know what I mean?
He's like
He's like a
tabula
boring
rasa
man.
in some ways, as the kids would say. Um,
He's he's just kind of a boring guy, but I thought that the two-headed snake idea was good. Which I was like in my mind like two-headed snake is like really common, but then when I was looking it up, I guess maybe I made it up. Like it's not a thing. Um
I saw them when I was looking them up, but it was almost always like split very close to the head, like it was conjoined like right near the end. I thought there would be ones more like the one you have designed here.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Like I felt like I'd seen a lot of these in I don't know, like mythology, kind of like religious stuff, but I guess not. So I actually invented the two-headed snake. And this is Coil. And his venom is dripping down onto Dinah, which is obviously an allegory for drugs.
Hmm.
Um and then he's got his cute little toy soldiers. And then over on the right here, you see maybe a Black Widow coming to save the day.
Yeah, yeah. Um it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I am going to I forgot to preload mine, but I'm going to have it so that I can open it actually no, I can switch back and forth. Yeah, by going left and right. Yeah, I can do that. Cool. Well, when we collapse a reality during the chapter, maybe we'll see, what the shittier reality could have been.
Mm. Vale, if I'm sure you could get us a pinup coil, for our holiday cards.
Yeah. And hi, Greg. Hi, Vale. Greg says he'd probably get really annoyed if somebody stuck googly eyes on his costume, but somebody really should. Yeah.
That's whenever I've like drawn or visualized his costume, that's something that's like the snake head goes around onto his face or whatever, and if the snake has eyes, then I imagine they're like too close together and it makes him look kind of goofy, like his eyes are like right in the middle of his face. So I think I just avoided drawing eyes when I drew his costume.
I don't. Yeah, I guess I always imagined it didn't have like eyes on the
Yeah.
thing, but yeah. You make a good point. It would look pretty goofy. Um,
Right. Yeah, I didn't want to make him look too goofy. He already I think Coil's costume is definitely one of the worst ones we've seen so far.
yeah.
Like, it's not even a costume. His name is Coil. I mean, I guess the point is that it has nothing to do with his power, but I don't like it. And then, like, the way that the snake, like, wraps around him, it just looks stupid in my mind. Like, he doesn't look impressive. He doesn't look spooky.
Yeah. I think that like maybe he liked the idea that it would just look like the snake in darkness, which Taylor had commented on, but I think overall you're right. It's just not like cool enough. And like I think
And
he's
most of the
trying to
time he's
like
not in darkness.
yeah.
He's like in his warehouse walking around.
Yeah. It's I don't even know with the and I know he's not planning to be Coil forever, but it's just like with the branding, I'm not sure. I think he just wanted to be like so far removed from any like indicating what his power is and like
Hmm.
it I don't know what made him choose the snake. Seems like poorly thought out because it's like people even say stuff like there's a snake on your costume for a reason.
Oh
Stuff
my
like that.
God.
Yeah.
He's such a snake.
Um Greg says Glenn Chambers would have some comments. Vale had said it's perfectly written to have absolutely nothing to like about him.
I guess. That's why we haven't met Accord yet, but Accord is like who Coil should have been. I love Accord.
Accord,
Coil's
he not the best boss to work for, probably.
probably not the best boss, but I would work for him.
Really.
Yeah. We won't talk about it though. I just hate Coil, and whenever there's a character that I think is a loser, I try to find a contrasting character that's better than them, like how Dinah is cooler than Vista. But
I'm just worried that you would end up getting the axe.
oh, for
He
sure.
seems to like the kills. Okay, so you're going in with eyes wide open about that.
Like I
Very
have
citrine like,
no
I guess.
misconception that I don't think like, oh, I would be like the perfect subordinate for no, like I would get killed so quickly.
All right then. um anyway, so the audience participation question for today is what shenanigans would you get up to with Coil's power? And I saw that we do already have an answer in the Discord from both Greg and Vale, although I have not read either. Um, I glanced at Greg's and I was like, I gotta save it. Live reacts, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and then the themes here. We got sort of consequences and lack of consequences, and the like sort of interplay of those two things with Coil's power. Um, and he can see what the consequences of two sets of actions are and choose one. Like that's an obvious thing, but even perceive things like the lack of consequences for actions taken in a dismissed reality will actually still affect the way he thinks and interacts in like the real world or whatever, leading to another outcome in that like real reality. So
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know. It's always the info is ping ponging off everything. He's got like a multiplicative effect on any information gathering if he
Yeah, would you
wants.
call him, I guess he's a thinker, huh?
Yeah, yeah, he's a thinker. Um, there's although the thing is also I thought of another way his power could work that wouldn't be a thinker power that I think is plausible, and I was just going to talk about that in the powers knowledge section. Um,
Okay.
it's just a bit of interest of like, oh, I was thinking in the car. Um, but do you wanna talk about this whole section?
Sure. I guess it kind of goes along. I think I might be echoing out your mic, just by the way.
Oh, really?
Maybe. Tell me,
Um,
Vale, if I'm echoing or if I'm just making that up. Um, but yeah, it kind of like goes along with his consequences and lack of consequences. Like he is less likely to see like other people as people, um, because of that. Okay, Vale says they don't hear anything. I'm just making it up.
okay.
Um, he like everyone to him is like very disposable just because his worlds are so disposable. And I was talking to William. I'm sure everyone here has played Undertale or whatever. Like it really does remind me of like I guess the main character, you being the main character or Flowey or whatever, where like the whole intention is that if your world was like so disposable or whatever, you would just end up um like dehumanizing everyone in it and like losing empathy for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like that they like in that instance really work on and they kind of it's kind of a trick that Wildbow pulls here too, but in Undertale it makes you think of the purely fictional characters as though you were empathizing with a real person, so you're projecting like more back at it than you would if you were just like thinking about it briefly or whatever. I don't know.
Mhm. Yeah.
Sometimes
And
a skeleton really is your boyfriend.
yeah, I wonder if Coil's power like literally warped his perspective on other people to like empower him to use it more, or if it was more of like a slow burn and it was just like a natural consequence or whatever of having that ability.
I think I think more probably the second, that it's a slow burn. I think that the power would reward him for having that kind of mindset in like I don't know, usefulness ways in something. I don't know how his power could like attune more because like for Taylor there's obvious ways, for Tattletale there's kind of obvious ways, etc. But I'm not sure what Coil's power would affect to like be better. But I think like the more he kind of acted like the power, the more it's useful it is because that's kind of what we see kind of across the board with I mean most powers, I guess.
Bale said, I honestly don't think he had any empathy to begin with. It's a perfect fit to have someone who would have no qualms about doing what he does in any reality to only not do it to avoid bad outcomes. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think he's like a straight up like sociopath or whatever. I think that like, you have to think of like most bad people aren't just sociopaths with no empathy. Like there's a lot of other factors. um, but definitely like somebody who because we learn in this chapter that he did like pay for his power to get it in the same way that I guess um we mentioned Canary did, and who else have we met that said they've paid for their power? I don't know if we've met anyone else.
I think those are the only two that we know so far in the story, and for now I'm gonna leave it that way.
Yeah, so to be somebody who goes out and pays for your power, like seemingly just for power, you've obviously have to have some kind of
Yeah, like Paige is a
selfishness
ditz and
problem.
like is selfish and like kind of once you break free of like looking at only the current injustice and you think about like her last few years, you're kind of just like, oh man, I don't think you should go to super jail, but like you need to figure some things out. Um,
Yeah.
but then you contrast that, which is already like pretty bad, honestly. When you really think about it, with Coil, who is just like real bad.
He's just like, I just wanted to be evil. Like he seemingly went into it being like, I'm going to be a supervillain and take over the city. Like I can't think of why else he would want powers.
Yeah, I think that I think he does that gets powers generally. He doesn't know what he's gonna get, but he wants like a thinker power so he can be out of the line of fire and he can do
Hmm.
like some master plan. And he just happens to get a really, really good thinker power.
Yeah. Vale said, Canary did nothing wrong. Sheesh.
Oh boy. And then there's paranoia. Coil can never be too double careful. I think that his paranoia developed hardcore because of both a previous trauma that we see later in the book, but also I think the power really developed it like hardcore.
Yeah,
Because if you
definitely goes
can be
along with it.
paranoid, you've got to be
You
paranoid.
should.
Yeah, and I mean, there's like really bad outcomes if you aren't, but like, I also think he's been driving himself crazy for a long time.
Yeah, I can see, like, I feel like I'd fall into the same thing. Like, I was thinking about it, like, the amount of times like in a game where I'll try to do something and then I accidentally ruin it. Like how many times has he accidentally deleted the wrong reality and then he's like, "Oh man."
Fuck. Yeah.
I wonder if that's a possibility or if just somehow it always works out.
Well, it's like there's this thing where speedrunners will try a trick over and over again, and so there was this one really rare Mario Kart trick that was like I don't know, one in tens of thousands, and the first
Mm.
time it was got, the guy reset, I think,
Yeah,
because he was
'cause it was
muscle
new.
memorying all of the failed attempts. So horrible.
Yeah. There's like so many times that that happens to me in my day to day, and I'm sure this happens to Coyle. Where he's like, okay, delete, and then it's oof.
Yeah, I
Ugh.
wouldn't want. There's certain powers I wouldn't want. Like Coils is really powerful, but in a lot of ways, like in an actual parahuman setting, I don't know if I'd want it because it would just be constantly like crazy stressful to like be double focusing and like moving about and like I don't know.
Yeah, like I don't know what I mean, I'm sure his power makes it very easy to do, but think about like I wonder what he was doing during the Leviathan attack. Like he was probably freaking out and bunkered down in one place and bunkered down in another place and like making different calls or whatever. Like he obviously wasn't involved in the fight, but I'm sure that he was doing some kind of preventative measures and it was probably really stressful.
He was still running different people on different like things, so he was still changing the actions of the travelers, for instance, like
Hmm.
during the whole fight. So I don't know how much he changed things, but yeah, he did something, and he was probably
Vale,
just double freaking out.
yeah, Vale said in one reality, Coil got a horrible, useless power. In the other one, he got this one and collapsed the first timeline. Um, for me, that reminds me of the old Baldur's Gate game where you could reroll your character with a button press, and almost everyone would press it over and over for a good roll, then accidentally overwrite a perfect roll because you've been pressing it over and over and over for so long. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Greg says got to get them 18s. That's the highest
Yeah.
stat at the starting point for those games. Um, And then Greg mentions the trick name. I was talking about the Weather Tanko, which I did not remember, but that was the name.
Yeah.
But I believe Greg because it's Greg. Uh, we want to go in.
So we can get into the chapter. I'll just mention now that I think this is mm, like looking back on all of the interludes that we've gotten or whatever from other powered capes, like we get no personal reveal from Quail. Like he is obviously not like does not identify with his civilian identity. He doesn't describe himself physically at any point and he doesn't use his name. He calls himself Coil the whole time. So that's something of note.
You'd
So
think
I'll
he
be
was a
calling him Coil
changer
the
with
whole
all these
time.
identity issues.
Yeah, exactly. So, throughout the whole chapter, he's going to be running to at least, well, not at least, he'll be running to realities. And if I don't mention what's going on in the other reality, it's because it was boring and it didn't matter.
It's true.
So, he wakes up, and in one reality, well, I guess he didn't wake up. In one reality, he had spent his entire night awake, in his costumed in his underground base, and he's like in a bunker surrounded by soldiers. And I guess he's just been studying like the news and stuff. And he
What a
feels
nerd.
safe. I know, he's a huge nerd. And that's one thing, like you mentioned, like in one reality, he gets a good night's sleep, and the other reality, he did all of the studying and stayed up all night, and he still did that. Like, he still retained all that information, so he didn't actually get any rest.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
his body is rested, but like the way I just feel like there's gotta be some mental toll because
Hmm.
in my opinion, he is going crazier as time passes. Uh,
Yeah.
there's got to be some mental toll to always 100% of the time being awake. Like Miss Militia specifically has to do her own fake sleep to like ground
And not be
herself in
crazy.
reality and not go like nuts. So,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah,
mean, she
Bill said
doesn't
the
go
news.
all villain, but you know, whatever. Still.
Bill said the news in this world must be much different than ours. Yeah. Um, well, I'm sure their news is crazy right now because this is right after the Leviathan attack. So he feels safe in his bunker because only his own employees knows where he was, and he feels like even if one of them decided to attack, like his others would back him up because of how well they're paid. Um, Not because it's their job, I guess, but
Well, it's because they have
um,
like disparate loyalties, and so because they're all
mhm,
brought by money and not like a camaraderie between each other, I think is the
yeah,
idea that they don't value each other enough to not just kill each other,
yeah.
which he
So in
values
his
highly.
in his second reality, he had a full night's sleep. He wakes up in his humble civilian home, and he has breakfast and waves to his neighbors, in his robe, which I was like, don't go outside in your robe. That's weird. Um, he dresses up in his normie clothes and he heads off to quote unquote work. And it takes much longer than usual to drive because of like evading all of the damage and the traffic from the Leviathan attack. Um, so he meets up with a soldier named Creep, who apparently lives up to his name, though we don't really know what that means because he's being very coy about it in a way that he's not coy later. Um, I don't know. Some Jeffrey Dahmer motherfucker.
Yeah, it wasn't. I was like, I kind of just kept thinking like, is he a pedophile? Is that the thing?
Yeah, like that's the only thing that it really made sense, but I don't know, could be something else. Um, Coyle doesn't seem to care that much because he is the only person who ever sees his face, seemingly. Um, he's also the only person who would dare employ creep. And he quote unquote provides him with his payment, which makes him perfectly loyal. And yeah, they got a perfect symbiotic relationship going on.
We did talk earlier about how it would be funny at least to us if it was something like he just had a foot fetish and then
Yeah.
Coil is trading feet pics and like no other soldiers would dare work with Creep.
No one would dare employ such a man. Um, Sigma said he's got his knees flexing and his arms T-Rexing. Um, so Coyle just thinks to himself that his favorite kind of people are those who are both useful and desperate for something that he can provide them, which seemingly he can provide anyone with anything. Um, such as the travelers and the creeps and the grus of the world. So we we know the travelers want something from him, though we're not sure what. But Gru, as far as we know, it's just that he needs like his vouch to like help his vouch and his employment so that he can adopt his sister.
Yeah.
Um,
But the status quo has
and
changed, and Coyle is not yet thinking ahead to the fact that, oh, given that things have kind of fallen apart, Gru can do what he wants.
Gru can do whatever he wants. Like, there's no laws right now.
Yeah.
But for everybody else, he just offers um lots and lots of cash. So he gets into Creep's van and he changes in his coil costume. Um, it's sectioned off so Creep can't dare see him and his precious feet. So the van is disguised as an electrician's van. So it just heads to the construction site above Coil's underground base, super unsussly. Um, and it was luckily safe from the crater that Leviathan made downtown. But it was like a pretty close call. He says like if it had been a couple feet in one direction, then they might have had to do like more repairs or something.
A couple feet? Jeez.
Yeah. Sorry, it's on my mind. Vale said he can provide anyone with the belief that he will do it. In some cases, he just strings them out the con as long as he can. Less than 10% chance he can help travelers. Yeah, exactly. He's just kind of, he thinks that he can provide it though, because he doesn't say like, oh, I'm gonna string him along or whatever. He's like, yeah, I'll get to it eventually.
Yeah, I think he's convinced that, like, oh, I can affect the outcome with my power enough that, or like, or, it won't matter because I'll have used them for long enough, and, like, he'll have shed his skin, let's say.
Yeah. And I had forgotten that it was 10% because like 10% is pretty good in my opinion that he could have helped them. But we'll see how it goes. So he um he enters his secret doorway and then like goes through the giant vault door into his underground base. And he still has his first reality running, so that's the one where he already woke up in his base. And in there, he goes into a room connected to his own to greet Dinah, who's just like laying with her eyes open in bed. I had, I guess, missed the fact that he had attached Dinah's room to his, which is just horrible.
Yeah, I never forgot about that.
I must have blocked it out, dude. I was like, I didn't want to hear this. Um, Dinah's shook that it's morning. She's like, I feel like I just had dinner, which like implies that she didn't sleep. She just laid with her eyes open for 8 hours.
Hmm.
Um, and then she immediately asks for candy. Coyle tells her it's too early. She'll get the jitters. And he needs his daily questions answered. So we learned from Dinah that there's only a 3% chance that there's any problems here before lunchtime. And that placates Coyle, so he just collapses this reality. And he keeps the one where he had the nice night's sleep and the drive to the base with Creep.
I have a
And
question.
yeah,
Is now the time to reveal the second reality now that we've collapsed one?
yeah, I think that's perfect.
Okay, so we would. Is the other reality we could have lived in?
Oh my God. That's so funny. I love the sad Dinah. And then we've got multiple tattoos here, I see.
I thought I would use a higher diversity of images, but the thing is that it turned out to be so quick to do, like the way I did it, that
Yeah,
I mean, you heard the whole thing. I think it was under 20 minutes for,
y-
yeah.
it's pretty good. Um, So, so he enters into this reality, um, with poor sad Dinah in her reptile containment. Ugh. I didn't even give her any toys in hers because I was like, I want it to be more sad. And it does seem to be the life she's living. He could like buy her stuff, but it seems like he doesn't. I don't know. Not that it would make it less bad, but I think I would like to own things
Yeah.
if I was in the situation, you know.
I mean, it seems
Um,
like he could treat her way better in a way that doesn't like lose him anything. Like, give her a video game, something that
yeah,
she'll just
exactly.
stare at all day.
Give her like something to do. Like the fact that she was just laying in bed with her eyes open, like does she have a TV? Does she like have books or I don't know.
It just
Like
doesn't seem like that difficult of a thing to set up with Mr. Pitter. Like he can do all of that work. You just have to tell
yeah.
him to do it.
Yeah. And he's very, very rich. It reminds me of oh my God. Well, I don't know if this makes it better, but like the book Flowers in the Attic, which does have secret incest, so don't read it. But the mom is like abhorrently rich and she keeps her children in the attic, and so they're like dressed up in like thousands of dollars of worth of clothes and they have like everything they want, but they're just in the attic. But they were happy for like 2 years, so like I mean, you could have kept Dinah a little happier. Um
Yeah.
So he collapses the one where he stayed up all night, and then the only thing he like retains from that reality is obviously the knowledge that he gained during that time. Um so he stays in the single reality for like a split second before he splits it again. He which like makes
When we
sense. I
split
think
it
it makes
again,
sense
do
to
we
use
go
his
back?
power this way. Pardon me.
When we split it again, do we go back? Woo!
No, you can leave it. Flowers in the Attic is a brutal read. Yeah, exactly. Doesn't buy her stuff. What do you mean? He has a personal human candy dispenser. What more could she want? Oh my God. She could just, I don't know. And the fact that they don't just give her more drugs. I, listen, if I were to kidnap somebody, anyways, he splits his reality again. And he thinks about how happy he is that he has Dinah, um, and offering him all of the calculations so that like he can basically like know when it's safe for him to split. Because previously, like before he had her, he would split and then something bad would happen and then he like wouldn't be able to go back and his realities would be like too close together or whatever to deal with the situation. Um,
Mm, mm-hmm.
I didn't mention it, but I'm not going to be calling her this, but he does not call her Dinah the entire chapter. He only calls her his pet, so that's gross.
Yeah.
Um, I'm going to call her Dinah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, probably best.
Do you want to pull this quote here?
Yeah. The first reality. Captains, with me, Empire 88 is divided, and I'm going to direct you on a series of strikes to ensure we deal as much damage as possible before the two factions can merge once more. The other. I wish to survey the base, captains, as you were.
So, in that reality, we follow him, and he admires his base taking shape as he walks around. And he approaches this beta ass looking man named Mr. Pitter, and he inquires about the status of the travelers like apartments. Um, that's all I thought I needed to be said about Mr. Pitter. He's like a small man with glasses and then like a sweater and ascot or something.
Yeah.
Um, it's kind of jarring against, I mean, like him and his supervillain costume and his all his soldiers and stuff.
Yeah, it's weird how I don't know. I guess it's meant to be like a juxtaposition, but a lot of the people seem like they're not dressed for the occasion of the fact that they're in like the crime zone.
Yeah, I guess it's like Mr. Pitter's like technically supposed to be taking care of Dinah right now, but he's not. He's hanging out with Coyle, so I don't know. That's the other thing is like Mr. Pitter is not being the best nanny for Dinah.
True.
Like he's not spending, she's like awake and he's not with her. He's not like spending time with her or feeding her or anything. I don't know. I just feel like they could be taking a lot better care of her. It's making me
Oh, I
sad.
mean, they definitely could be.
It's not that it would make the crime, it would make the crime less bad though, right?
Yeah,
Like
it
if
would
they
make the crime
humanized
less
her,
bad for sure. Like
if they
you're
made
not
her,
wrong. It's just it would still be a bad crime, just a different, less bad crime.
it'd be a different, less bad crime. So, the traveler's room is apparently all done aside from making it more handicap accessible. So I guess like teaser that someone in the travelers is handicapped. Um, so I don't know why they wouldn't have planned before this point, but that's fine. Next, he asks about the quote unquote containment facility, though he had heard construction noises last night from the reality he spent in the bunker, so he kind of knows already. But he's told that the vault door was placed last night, and someone named Noelle had to be talked down by Trickster during this because she was pretty pissed.
Yeah,
Um,
you're
and then you can read this quote here.
for sure. I just had like a thought that struck me that I had to share about if
Okay.
I was Genesis, I
Mm-hmm.
would dream up like a palanquin with many legs that I would
To
set
carry you
myself
around.
upon, and then I would be able to walk up and down steps, and I would be in like a uh, maybe a harnessed seat. Um, yeah, it would be I would be a real monster, but or maybe a cute cat boss. Who knows?
Vale said, in my experience, most villain bases don't follow local construction ordinance. Yeah. I don't know. I think it's fine to do construction overnight, but just not when somebody's in it. I
Greg
think we see her
says,
carrying
oh yeah.
herself at least once. Yeah, I think that's like she should probably do that more often, but like in the times where she's in fights and stuff, it obviously makes sense for her to just not be there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You wouldn't actually ever want to, if possible, you never want to be near your enemy as Genesis. You just like keep running
Yeah,
projections in.
always go remote.
So he didn't like interacting with people, especially not subordinates as important as the travelers or undersiders, without the ability to create or banish the reality if the discussion didn't go his way. Here, he was safe. His other self was giving orders on movements, targets to attack, individuals to watch for, informed by the night he had spent tracking the deployments and patrol patterns of the Protectorate and wards.
So, Coyle and Mr. Pitter head to the traveler's apartment. Mr. Pitter fell into the useless and desperate category that Coyle loves so much.
They're
Um,
useful and
so
desperate.
yeah, useful and desperate,
You said
but
useless.
useless. He is, I don't know. He says like, "Oh, I want useful people," but like he doesn't seem that useful. But whatever. His life was allegedly destroyed by his upset wife when he tried to divorce her after she cheated on him. Then she accused him of sexually abusing the children that he nannied for, which I will take Hoyle's word and say that it was illegitimate claims.
Right.
Because I don't think he would shy away from being like, yeah, it was true, but I'm gonna stick up for him.
Yeah.
And so, his loyalty was bought with the disappearance of his wife, along with the disappearance of the accusations that she had spread about him, which doesn't even seem to matter now because he lives in Coil's base, so who cares? But his primary job now is to take care of Dinah, which he's not doing a good job of, and making sure her drugs are clean and properly administered, and making sure she's healthy, which she's not. So I don't know.
You
Mr.
know,
Pitter's just not doing a great job.
I guess I have a new perspective on this. It's like maybe Coil is just non-descriptive, but what he means is I just need a go-between me and the children who like vaguely knows childcare, and he doesn't even have to be good. He just has to not have the like moral code to turn me in or whatever.
I guess, but it's also like it seems like Mr. Pitter as somebody who was an actual nanny, and I think they described him as like really successful and like good at it or whatever. Like he should just do the things that he knows to do. Yeah. But I
Yeah.
guess he's just such like an empty shell of a man now that he just doesn't. So, uh, Sigma said, oh wait, we missed a bunch. Vale said she should make highly defensible, comfy bed monsters so she can attend battles in person. Greg said Coil's got a mental Venn diagram he slots people in. Yeah, exactly. Vale said Coil, healthy equals doesn't pester me. Yeah, I guess that's what it is. I don't know.
I think the mental Venn diagram thing is right because when he says like useful and desperate, those are two categories, but his like numbers value high desperate, low useful.
Yeah. He doesn't need them to be that useful, really.
Yeah. I
Um,
wanted to pull out before we move past it that I thought it was interesting here, especially not subordinates as important as the travelers or undersiders. Like, obviously, the travelers are really powerful and, like, they're out of town muscle and stuff. But the undersiders, like, he has invested a lot of time in them. But we get from his perspective kind of confirmation that, at least as far as, like, chips on the board, he values them, like, pretty highly.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they Coil and Mr. Pitter knock at Trickster's door, and he opens the door and he's like, "Ugh, fuck off, Mr. Pitter." And then he realizes Coil is there. So Coil asks Trickster to come speak with Noelle with him, as he is often a better mediator. So as they head to see her, Trickster asks if there's anything encouraging he can tell her to try to keep her spirits up. And Quail says that he's planned on introducing Tattletale to her, but that Tattletale is dealing with issues in her group right now. So they'll kind of have to wait until things get settled in that area. And Trickster's not happy with that. Like, that's not information he wants to share with Noelle. So they approach a 20 by 20 foot vault door. I can only assume it's 20 by 20 foot because he says it's 3 times as tall as him, and he is 7 feet tall. So, um,
God damn it.
Trickster touches a button on a keypad that has like a small monitor on it next to the door, and he asks Noelle if she's there. And her face appears on the keypad, and the two greet each other. And Trickster says Coil wants to speak with her, and she agrees. So Coil apologizes to Noelle for the loud construction work last night, but Noelle's like, it is the fact that you locked me in. um, Trickster argues that she had agreed to this and like even asked to be locked in or detained to some degree. But Noelle says she's already getting cabin fever even after just a couple hours. And Trickster's like, well, you can always call me or Oliver or Mr. Pitter. And I pulled a nice quote here if you want to read it.
Yeah. Um, it was
Oh, I didn't even include. She says she doesn't like Mr. Pitter because he's creepy.
right, right, yeah. Trickster diplomatically didn't comment on Mr. Pitter's presence nearby. Calmly, he spoke. We're working on a solution. Um, you've been working on it, or we've been working on that for a month now, she began to shout, which only added to the gravelly quality of her voice. Fix this! Fix me! You did this to me! Klaus! You know, the classic.
Noelle's like flipping out, and she called Mr. Pitter creepy, which was so rude. Mr.
Yeah.
Pitter, hashtag Mr. Pitter did nothing wrong. Um, Coyle steps in and he says Trickster's not to blame. He lets her know about Tattletale coming to look into things soon, and he's been talking to the head of parahuman studies at Cornell. But this doesn't do anything to calm Noelle down. And as she yells, there's like a loud shuddering impact against the vault door, and dust spills from the ceiling. Coyle's like, "Welp, I verified it. She's getting worse." And then he collapses this reality.
Reality
um,
collapses.
Greg said, Coyle actually has 3 categories: useful, desperate, and creepy. Ideal employees have all 3. I think that would make Taylor the perfect candidate.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, they were so close to being a match made in heaven.
I know. Oh my God, she and Coyle could take over the city together. Um, so in the other reality, he's talking to his soldiers, and he asks Mr. Pitter to give Noelle a double ration this morning to help her with her crankiness. And he's like, "Oh, but sir, the costs," which is the only like human reaction to anything we've seen Mr. Pitter do. So I don't know what his deal is.
Well, I think it
Um,
also is hinting at the vast cost of whatever Noelle needs to
Yeah,
survive.
like it's gotta be extreme for it to like worry Mr. Pitter in this way. Because
Because he doesn't seem to
money
give
is
a fuck about any of this other stuff.
yeah, he doesn't seem to care about anything. So he follows this up with having him schedule further construction to reinforce that vault door that they just added, or even add in a second one behind it as soon as possible. Mr. Pitter scurries off, and Coyle's left with just one last assistant, and they notify him that his businesses are not doing great after the Leviathan attack, and he's like, "Oh, great," and then dismisses him.
I think that
Not,
person might be Cranston.
okay,
Um, yeah, so Cranston is actually a lady, and we know this because this person interacts with some of our main characters again later as like a,
got it.
yeah, go between.
Okay. So he dismisses her and then he splits realities again. And in one he goes to check emails on his computer, and then in the other he goes back to Dinah's room. And Dinah eerily greets him like almost verbatim to the first reality that he had woken her up in, and then dismissed. So that's creepy. Um, and he asks her his morning questions, even though he already knows the answers from earlier. And it's just like he just does this in every reality, so she never forgets the routine in case he just ends up dismissing those for like the week or whatever.
Something I
Um,
thought is that if he already knew he was gonna banish the reality, like, before he did the split for the trickster thing, if he already knew he was gonna banish the one where he stayed up all night, why didn't he max out on questions before dropping it?
I think he didn't know he was gonna banish it. He wanted to, I think, I mean, I guess he does, because as soon as she answers, he knows that he's gonna banish it because he knows it's safe or whatever.
Yeah, I probably, if I was, an evil dude who didn't, give a fuck about anything, I'd be like, I've got to add more onto this, tab, because
Well,
I'm
maybe
not
he's
paying
done it
for it.
before and Dinah's just been like so annoying and uncooperative that it doesn't work.
Oh, yeah, that might be true. Hmm.
Because she might just start screaming because I think we see her like do that later on where she'll just start like flipping out and then he's like ah because he doesn't know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
Too bad he doesn't have a nanny to help him out or anything. Um so Dinah lets him know that his grand plan has a 72% success rate, and he's pretty happy with that, and it's actually improved since the Leviathan attack. So he moves on to his next question, and I pulled a quote here if you want to read it.
Yeah. Chance the issues with the Undersiders will be resolved? Don't understand. He frowned. Another limitation. She needed to be able to visualize the scenes. What is the likelihood that the Undersiders will still be serving under me at the point in time my plan succeeds or fails? To one decimal point. 65.6, but they aren't all the same Undersiders.
If I was Coil, I'd be like, ugh, what's the percent chance that all of the Undersiders give me a hug in the near future? All the issues resolved. No problems here. Um, so Coyle asks if his plan is more successful with this new group of Undersiders, but this one throws Dinah off as well, and she complains about her headache. So he rephrases it, and Dinah answers that his plan is 4% more successful with the new Undersider group. His last question is how likely he finds a solution to the traveler's situation, which, as Vale said, is 9%. Quayle notes that this is 7% lower than before the attack, and he wonders if Leviathan had come here for a reason. He'd noticed that Leviathan had been traveling closer and closer to Quayle's base throughout the fight. And the travelers had noticed too, and they were very fearful. So while Coil is lost in thought, Dinah starts like just going on a fucking rant and he's totally ignoring her. She's talking about how like upset she is about the candy situation and how sick she feels, and it's even worse because she can see the percentages of how likely she is to get it. And he cuts her off and he promises that she'll get some soon. So Quail figures with success so close, he should celebrate. It would be unfair with how expensive his power had been to not put it to good use. Even after gaining his power, it had taken him years to pay it off, and he still owes a favor in return for the power. And that's just something that kind of looms over him because he doesn't know when he's going to be um, basically forced to do this favor and if it'll be like an important part during an important time of his grand plan.
Or, like, the favor
Um,
could be to, like, not complete his grand
yeah,
plan.
yeah, exactly. So he cancels this reality with Dinah and he calls Mr. Pitter to his office. And then he splits immediately. So once Mr. Pitter is once Mr. Pitter arrives, he directs one of them to go get Dinah her candy, and then in the other, he clicks a button on his computer to remotely close the doors, locking Mr. Pitter into the office with him. Dun dun dun.
I can't believe that we ended on this note of
It's, it's a good
switching
one.
realities again.
Yeah. So I don't know what we don't really know what Coil does a lot of implying like more so than Taylor by far. Um, which I guess is like interesting, like why he calls Dinah's drugs her candy and stuff. Like he was definitely the one to do that because I don't know, he just likes being coy. He's kind of a prude, I guess, in some ways, where he just doesn't want to talk about it.
Yeah. Greg's right.
I
It's a
think he,
Goosebumps chapter end moment.
yeah, I think he has like this weird like politeness and um like social norm kind of thing that he pushes even like in contrast to his actions, which is really funny.
Yeah, like he has this patina that he I think it's like something he wants to be, so it's like one of the only crossovers from like the Coil persona to dun 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 after he sort of sheds his skin much later. Um
Oh, shed his skin like a snake?
like his neck. I feel like that's one of the only overlaps that we see over his different iterations is that like he tries to keep up this like facade of hmm, like class and
Yeah.
high-mindedness maybe because he's like
Hmm.
telling Skitter like, "Oh, I'm going to of course a man of my pride needs to leave the city better than I got it, blah blah blah."
Yeah, Vale said it could be part of his paranoia, which I do think it could be part of it, but like he also like compliments what's his name? Trickster for his tact. Um
Yeah,
he's
mentally in a
like
way
he's
that
like
no one else would
good call, Trickster. Like he definitely like it's just a weird part of his personality that comes off as very funny.
Yeah, it's not like I wouldn't say that he like always accurately assesses stuff because he's got like a crazy warp perspective, but I would say that he's like not the kind of villain who would be like, "Oh, all these fools under me." He's like assessing like who can I trust with what. He's like doing actual managerial shit. Um
It kind
uh
of aligns too with the fact that like he he wants to like get rid of like drug use and stuff in the city just like Taylor does because it's just like he's like, well, of course I want to get rid of drug use. Like that's not very classy of us.
yeah, I was kind of thinking about it as just now. He's Um, God, I lost it. It was just. Oh yeah, he's. I think he might be one of those 48 Laws of Power guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I bet he loves that book.
Strike the shepherd and the sheep shall scatter.
Exactly.
That's the one that our coworker Cam always says. It's funny every time.
It's because it's nuts. Oh man. That one's good because it really shows the sort of general vibe of the different laws.
Yeah. It's very coyly. I see. I feel like he wouldn't read the book because he knows it all, but he would like recommend it to other people.
Yeah, yeah.
He'd be like, duh. I already knew this. I actually wrote this book myself.
Greg says reject drug use, embrace bug use.
Yeah. Oh my God.
But yeah, let's jump down here. Do you want me to start reading these or?
You can start talking about Coil.
Okay. So we got a quote here. Coyle held firmly to the philosophy that one couldn't be too paranoid. Every moment of every day was a delicate balancing act, anticipating any number of unseen threats from every possible angle, whether he was speaking with his subordinates or simply rising to meet the day. Yeah, paranoia is like baked into his whole worldview, his whole mindset all the time, and he's always awake.
I
So, yeah. Vale says, completely off topic thought. In reality, Coil's power would lead to a much more boring life. Huh. I guess it depends on how much you value the lost experiences, which you would still hold in your mind.
Mhm.
I think those would be pretty. I mean, to you, they're a full reality. They're like the real. But anyway. Um, He was spending less and less time in his civilian identity these days, to the point that he was pondering dropping it altogether. He could be Coil full time, when the base was fully set up. For now, though, so long as he needed a bed and a place to stay, or a place to get away from the noise of construction, the ruse was necessary. So, this also pointing out the construction not only would have kept Noelle awake all night, but would have been where Dinah was theoretically sleeping all night too.
Yeah, which is
So
why she just, I guess, was awake all night.
he's like, I can't stay in my room at the base because it's too loud, but one room over, Dinah, that little kid, definitely fine.
She doesn't need to sleep. It's like she would just be so much better at getting him numbers if she was better taken care of.
Like, the whole thing is that, like, I know she could resist better if she wasn't on the drugs, but, like, if he hadn't started down that path in the first place, I think that they could have, like, just
The
stress
Stockholm
honed,
syndromed her really
Stockholm
quickly.
syndromed her, and then stress honed her power as well.
Hmm.
Like, I think the results could have been way better, but he would have had to wait, and he's an
Yeah,
impatient
he
fuck.
would have had to like wait longer and then like build a real relationship with Dinah, which is like, oh,
Impossible for him. And
could not do
so
that.
he has to get like the shitty outcome that like ruins her life. Like, I mean, obviously being kidnapped is bad, but like this ruins her life in a much bigger way, I guess,
Yeah.
because then even if she's saved, then there's, the relapse possibility and stuff, which they do talk
It's
about in the book.
Yeah, I think like if he went for like a an other mother kind of spin, like I know your parents don't understand you, you had this trigger. I also have kind of precog thinker powers, like he's like her mentor or whatever. Like
I
I
think
feel
it
like she would
literally
have
would have worked.
it literally would have worked, and I think she would have like willingly probably worked for him if he like acted like a normal person. I don't know.
And like he'll tell a lie later to the protectorate that she's willingly with him. And it sounds not convincing to us because we know, but it sounds like the story we just described. And it's like
Yeah.
he can envision it in his mind to lie about
Yeah.
it, but he
He
can't
thought about it.
envision the fact that he could really do it for much better results.
Yeah. And I think it would have been like not that this the way that Koya went with it isn't interesting or whatever, but think about like the dynamic between the Undersiders if that was the case and like all the Undersiders would be like she's willingly doing this and Taylor would be like no, this is fucked up and it would have turned out pretty much exactly the same.
Yeah, I mean, if she wasn't on drugs and she was willingly there, I think that Taylor might have freaked out, but literally could have come to terms with it. I don't think she would have, like, run away. I think that I think she was at a tipping point that was far enough that
Mhm.
they wouldn't have broken up and the Undersiders would have been together going into the Leviathan fight. Which, who knows what that means in terms of, like, Arms Master revealing things after the Leviathan fight, if it even plays out close to that. Yeah, but, like, let's just say we get to that scene again.
Mhm.
What
Um
happens when the reveal happens?
Vale said they need an ASMR construction tools tinker. Greg says that seems neither desperate nor creepy. Hard reject. Vale said the thing that really surprises me is that she didn't have any insight that the kidnapping would happen in the first place, like 11% chance I make it to school tomorrow kind of thing. But I think at this point, like Dinah wasn't, and I think she still isn't using her powers for herself. Like the reason that her parents notice her powers is I think that they would like ask questions and then she would come back with like very complete answers with her like percentages and stuff and they were like what the fuck but
So
like the only
I was gonna say,
go
I
ahead.
think that she had also, like, she had said to her friends what her, like that she could see numbers and that she could see things in her head happen in the future and like stuff like this, and like she was already having like problems to become a parahuman at all,
Mhm.
and so she goes ahead and she's telling the like her friends who then like the word gets back to her parents, and then
Mhm.
like she said that her parents were scared, like this is later, but she says like my
Yeah.
parents were scared of me and stuff, and all this stuff. And that's why I think it would have worked to like reach out to her and like maybe like the initial kidnapping, but then be like, I'm going to train you or whatever. Like
Yeah.
that whole shit. I think that it would have worked because she was so scared of like the insecurity of feeling like her parents were already wanting to abandon her at the time.
Yeah. And Vale, maybe she did have um a like she did know about the kidnapping or whatever, but she can't do anything to prevent it because she can't see into like what would succeed in that or whatever. And then like also her parents like in denial about her power. If she was like something bad is happening tomorrow, like they would have been like, "Oh, you're silly, Dinah."
Yeah, and I mean even if she cuz like her brain projects the numbers involuntarily at her. She doesn't like spit out the numbers, but she like questions asked around her can trigger her power to go off when she's not trying to use it. Much like a lot of other powers, the power itself will do whatever it can to be used.
Mhm.
And so, like, it's doing whatever it can to be used, and then it gives her the thinker headaches. So, like, she was going through all these terrible migraines and stuff. It was a whole thing. Even getting her
Yeah.
power is like a tragedy, you know?
Yeah. Um, dum. So I was gonna talk about Coyle's insight on his own power
Yeah,
because
yeah.
like I don't understand the way that you've explained his power or whatever. Like I don't understand what you're talking about, but I don't understand what he's talking about either here. He
Okay.
says he says he often wondered if he really was creating the realities or if it was solely in his perception, foretelling futures to the extent that they hinged on his actions. He'd ask his tattletale, and she'd hadn't had oh sorry, he'd asked his tattletale, and she hadn't
Also, that's
had an
interesting
answer for
wording.
him.
He'd asked his tattletale.
His tattletale. Yeah, he's so possessive and gross. Um,
And it's always like
and
I don't
then
know the way he does it. It seems like the focuses for those like it seems like Tattletale and Dinah. It's like other thinkers, but also specifically very young girl thinkers.
yeah, nasty. But yeah, I guess I feel like he's probably right. Like it's a perception thing where he's having like a premonition or whatever, and then like he chooses one and then it happens, right?
Yeah, I'll try and describe it in a minute when we're done with reading the excerpt. But I would say that it's something that's confirmed out of story that I'll describe like how it's confirmed and like what it's supposed to be according to Wildbow, and then just the other version that I had thought of that kind of facilitates the exact same like outcome, I guess. But
Yeah.
yeah. Um. So you had. Oh, did you want to keep reading on these or?
No, that's fine. We already
Okay.
talked about
Okay, then
he
yeah.
he's
Then I'll just describe it, I guess. I'll just jump into it. Uh, we'll do it in the character section. So his power, essentially, he projects two precog realities forward with his own actions and sees to a very high degree of fidelity what will happen if he just keeps doing whatever. But he can't cut off early. He has to go to the point he's already at in the tape, and once he chooses one of the two realities, his body perfectly acts out like what had taken place up to that point. So he reaches that. Um, and yeah, it's power with some extreme downsides. We never see it, but like precog powers can kind of interfere with each other. So if there was
Mhm.
another suitably powerful precog around, like if he was ever in the midst of the Seamerg and he kept a reality going too long, I think his data would be all off and his body would be stuck into acting out a reality that doesn't like match. Um, Potentially to really disastrous results, you know. Um,
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it might just fail. Like Dinah, his power interferes with Dinah's power, which is like annoying in my opinion because he like relies so much on her or whatever. But like she'll be like sitting there thinking about, oh, how likely am I to get my drugs? And then he'll split a reality and then her numbers will be like, whoa. I think they mentioned that like in I don't know how when she mentions that, but she mentions that to somebody later that it's really inconvenient for her, and it's frustrating when like he's using his power because she's not getting like solid numbers anymore.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Greg says, you say that, but he seems to have no problems with Dinah, who is a pretty strong precog. I mean, I know what you're saying, but I think that the
The Seamergan
activeness of the
though.
Seaberg, yeah, the activeness of the Seamerg's power and the unrestrictedness of the Seamerg's power are both like to a very high fidelity. um, and obviously I have no way to actually like you know clink the action figures against each other, but I think it would really fuck him up, based on like the way that Wildbow is like that is how the power works. And the fact that his power does interfere with Dinah's, I think, kind of confirms that it is a precog power. Because
Mhm.
normal stuff like that doesn't really change her powers. Like even when there's like people who can walk between worlds, like let's say like Othello is here, I think she could see him just fine. Whereas she can't see Coil's stuff because he's affecting it. And the other thing that I had thought of is a power in the vein of Othello, which is that there would be um, Coil, and he would be in two very, very close realities, and then he would just kind of, sloop over to the one that was more advantageous to him when, ever. And then he
Yeah,
starts a new split point.
that's how I had kind of thought of his power where he was making like two small pocket realities and then he would just pick whichever one became like canonical.
Yeah, and I think that's a really interesting and like cool way for the power to work. I think they just that he wanted it to be the precog version so that it would mess up Dinah's numbers and that it could like interact with her in a way that would improve his numbers over time so he could
Yeah.
like get better gains, bro. And then I pulled this out, and I'll say it. You'll get some to tide you over in a bit, Pat. Coyle interrupted her in a as reassuring a tone as he could manage. It was impossible to conceal all of his irritation at being disturbed from his thoughts, but she was distracted enough by her own problems that she likely didn't notice. And I said, I think that Coyle is underestimating how much Dinah is paying attention to things.
He's also like projecting. He's like, well, I'm distracted by my problems that I don't care how she feels.
Yeah, and it's like even
Um,
just in the realm of like she's probably paying super close attention to him because of like the fact that he's in control of like the substance that she needs.
yeah.
So, because we don't know what drug it is, but whatever drug.
Whatever drug, it's got to be properly administered. I guess it's like I'm assuming it's like an injectable.
Yeah, I think it's probably an injection drug so that she can't
Yeah.
like easily use it on her own or like get her hands on. Because like
Hmm.
you could theoretically inject yourself, but like I don't know if she could like
But I don't think that she could.
actually do it.
She's like 12.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I have anything else to say about Coil. He kind of sucks ass. He's so like full of himself and like subscribes to weird societal standards
And
that it just makes him worse.
he's like really detached from everything in a way that makes his perspective like it's interesting because of the gimmick, but a book in this style would be so fucking boring. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
like
I think when I had originally read this chapter, I was like, "Whoa, like the splitting realities, like it's gonna be so awesome, and like there could be like some really like cool shit that he does, but he doesn't really. He like will use one to info
yeah.
gather and as a safety, and then he uses the other one to I guess he uses one to info gather and then the other as a safety. It just kind of depends. He's just I don't know. He's a little boring. You're right, Vale. It would be boring to be Coil.
Yeah, yeah. Um, let's see here. So yeah,
We get to
let's
get into
go
my
on to Trickster.
favorite
Yeah,
character.
you should talk about Trickster because you love him.
I love Trickster. Um, and I feel like this is kind of the most we've gotten from him so far in the book, really.
Yeah, we get little moments like he talks in the limousine and he does the videotape, and then we learn what his
Mhm.
power is, and then
And then
that's
and
he
he makes a
grand
joke
entrance
before
in
he
the pub.
yeah, he makes a joke before he saves Clock Blocker and it
Oh
really
yeah,
pisses off Taylor. But I don't even know like how much he's joking. Like
that's
I
the
think
thing
he's
is
just being a dork.
I think that he's just yeah I think he's just being him. I don't know that he's like doing a bit. If it was Alec, it would
Like
be a
he's
bit, but I think that
yeah, if it was
it's
Alec, he'd
Kraus.
be doing a bit, but he's just being himself. And Taylor's like, "Are you serious right now, dude?" Taylor literally hates funny people. It's so funny. She just like hates people who make jokes because I guess because she's like really bad at it. Um, so it makes her angry.
I think it's a demonstration of the fact that Taylor, in very small, like obviously big ways too, but in small ways, can't extend people the benefit of the doubt.
Hmm.
Like
Oh, for sure.
in that moment where Trickster does that thing, then she's just like shocked and stuff. But it's like clear that he's got to do what he's got to do to keep his composure in the situation and stuff.
Yeah, what she even thinks about, she's like, is this his coping mechanism? Which she'll like say about anybody who makes jokes or whatever. I feel like it's because Taylor's trying to like she's like so often trying to optimize like everything that she's doing and every interaction she has, and so she can't see like the value. She just doesn't it's just not innate to her, so she can't see the value of humor in like um
Well,
in that sense.
when she's out there, I feel like she has like her brain is a targeting computer, you know? Like
Yeah.
she changes modes most of the time. Like obviously her emotions bleed over and stuff because like despite all the jokes, her compartmentalization actually isn't perfect or like as good as she even thinks it is.
Yeah.
Um so like that's a whole thing, um her brain goes into like battle mode and she's just so like I don't know, fight oriented and like win oriented and like goals her goals are all that matter. All she cares about are gains.
Yeah, she's like really trying to min-max everything. And you know what doesn't min-max? Humor. So, um, I love Trickster. He's probably my favorite character at this point. So we get to see him unmasked for the first time. He, um, Coil like can't tell his race, but I think that he's like Middle Eastern or Indian, right? That sounds right.
It I literally am not sure. I could look at his the
That's
chapter
just
where
what
he interacts with his
his
mom, but
features sound like to me, because he says he has brown skin, and he's like maybe he's biracial or whatever, which I think he is. I think he's half white and then half Middle Eastern.
I mean that sounds
He
right
has
to me based on like the way
yeah.
they just sort of describe his nose and stuff.
Yeah, so he has long dark hair, um like
Uh,
shoulder length or whatever,
He's got
and
a whole bunch
then
of different features, like the widow's peak as well. You know.
yeah, the widow's peak, he has a hook nose. Um, Coyle describes him as having a severe appearance, which is very nice because everybody else in the future who will describe him will say he's ugly. Um, I think it's mostly Taylor because Taylor hates Trickster, and most of the time, like when she hates somebody, she can only see them as like super ugly or super hot. So
Yeah,
he
she.
definitely leans on the uglier side.
It is funny because there are a few people that she hates where she's like, I fucking hate them, but they're so hot. I hate
They're
that they're
so
hot.
hot. Like Emma is like that or whatever.
Well, and it's not
Judge.
just reserved for civilian stuff. It's like she thinks Arms Master is hot, even though she doesn't say it very much. She thinks Marquis is hot.
Marquis.
She
Yeah.
thinks Alexandria is hot, and Legend. She doesn't hate Legend though, actually.
No, but yeah, she's quite judgy. So he got a nice compliment from Quail. Quail
His eyes aren't normally sharp.
seems to like Trickster, which as we will see later, nobody likes Trickster, so it's kind of sad that like Quail is his like biggest ally.
Yeah.
Because Coil sucks and he like doesn't actually care about him or whatever. He's just like, this kid's pretty cool.
See, I always kind of
Um,
thought, based on his mom's description here of olive skinned with a hawkish expression, his mother managed to look intimidating even though she was an inch shorter than him. I kind of thought he was Italian.
oh, that's funny. Yeah, that could be it too. Um,
But
so
if he was biracial, that makes a lot of sense.
yeah, I assume that he's mixed. He's close with seemingly Noelle, and he kind of works as a like mediator between her and Coil because he doesn't really mediate. It's just like his presence makes things go by a lot smoother.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then we learn from Noelle that he did something to cause whatever dire situation she's in. Um, and we don't know what that is yet.
Yeah. Something. Hmm.
Something.
Um. So, do you want to talk more about Noelle? She's volatile.
Yeah, she's volatile, and close to Trickster, even though she blames him for her situation. Like she seemingly like wants to be spending more time with him. She gets kind of sad because he's like, "Oh, you can call me whenever time," and she's like, "Yeah, but like you're always on jobs." Um, so they have like a weird, like a weird, probably toxic dynamic. Um, she needs to be detained. We haven't we saw her face. I forgot to put in the description here. So nothing is wrong that we could see on her face. She is a white brunette girl who is looks very tired, kind of greasy haired. She's just like not doing well emotionally, and it's like
Wearing a
clearly shining
sweater.
through.
We know what happens to
Yeah,
people who wear
wearing a
sweaters.
sweater. So, but regardless of however she looks, she does need to be detained, and she needs to be fed something that's so expensive it gives even Mr. Pitter pause out of everyone. And Mr. Pitter doesn't pause over anything.
Right. And
So,
it's more of a powersy
solid
thing,
gold.
but she seems powerful enough to like rock walls with like individual hits.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, super strong. Vale says, I love the Noel scene here. It tells just enough to want to know more when then tells no more. I know. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
exactly one person likes Trickster, and her name is Victoria. That's not true. I'm sure that, I don't know, is Trickster not a fan favorite?
I like Trickster, but many people hate Trickster.
Oh, okay.
They
He
don't
does
find him
make
as
really
relatable.
okay. He makes really poor decisions, but we haven't seen that. We haven't seen him make any bad decisions yet.
Sometimes you make poor decisions.
Sometimes you make every single poor decision, and it's not really your fault. Like I literally just I think that
I
other
don't
people
think he's
blame
that
him.
bad.
I think a lot of other people blame him a lot more. When we get into the trickster interlude, I think that we said I'm gonna like take point on that because I love Trickster so much and I
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
defend him.
I don't want
Hashtag
to. I guess
Trickster did nothing wrong until later in the book.
I hadn't announced it to the stream ever, but now that you've brought it up, we have planned for Vic to take the lead spot on all of Arc 17.
Yeah, that's not for a while, so we'll be okay. Um, Vale said Trickster is no moral paragon like Taylor. Hard to be on his side. Okay, Vale, I'm gonna change your mind. That's my mission.
Yeah.
I'm gonna I'm gonna write all of my Trickster stuff like how I write Alex stuff, where it's just like Alec makes a funny joke here. He's trying to lighten the mood for Taylor.
Exactly what he's doing.
Um, okay, we can move on to Miss Dinah.
Sad and addicted to drugs.
Yes.
Um, yeah, her circumstances are not good. She is not in any way happy. Even it's like you would think there would be a version of this where Coyle keeps her drugged up and she's just not that present and she's just like whatever. But like this is her constantly like strung out, having like the worst time. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um.
Vale, I know that you don't think Taylor is a moral paragon,
But you're gonna
but you
have to
did say it's
learn
hard to be on his side.
to have the knowledge of Trickster's morality. Full Paragon. Um, but yeah, her powers make her circumstances with addiction more difficult for her to cope with. Yeah, like her predictive power ruined her life in its own right at the very beginning,
Mhm.
and it makes her terrible kidnapping like literally worse, and
Way
her drug
worse.
addiction way worse. And it's just terrible for her whole life.
Oh, we forgot to mention, I guess, in Coyle's little bit that he like murders people for fun.
Yeah, yeah, we didn't even mention that because it just
We
seems
didn't even,
like
we didn't even mention that because he's such a weirdo that I didn't think of it. He just like murders people for fun, when he's like to celebrate, which is, I mean, I'm sure I wonder what that's like if he's like torturing them or what, or if it's just like,
what I'm thinking is that he probably is, first of all, torturing them, but also that he's killing Mr. Pitter here not only for the reasons he said, but also for annoying him by being creepy to by Noel's estimation. And, you know, generally like him being mad at the kids also. So I think that there's a
yeah.
lot that goes into it that we're not being directly like stated at, but that probably is there. And I think he kills Dinah in some reality that he feels very safe in because he hates her and like because she's a child and he's like has no empathy for this terrible situation that he's made so much worse.
He
Um,
implies that like if it was a different time and place that he would have done it to Dinah, which
yeah.
is like so I don't know why it's so much more fucked up. It's because she's a little girl, but it's also like that is just so crazy. Okay, wait, I want to look at
Not only
what
do I
exactly
kidnap
he
you and
said.
all this, but also
Oh, if I forgot he doesn't say Dinah in the chapter, so I can't control F it. Um,
um
let's go
he was on the
to
brink of achieving his goals. It would be a laughable yeah, it would be a laughable tragedy to get this close only to have his power fail him, or accidentally choose the wrong reality, or have his other self killed by accident or malicious intent, forcing him to live with the ramifications of these idle amusements. For now, he wouldn't touch his pet, nor any of his powered subordinates, not when he was this close. So I guess he would also kill any of the travelers or undersiders.
Yeah, but like that is somehow, I mean, it's less bad. I don't know.
It is less bad
Because
because
they can
they're
like
like mercenaries
actually,
working for him and they can fight back to a certain
yeah,
extent. Like
they can fight back.
I feel like it's worse with like Tattletale than with almost any of the others to me.
Yeah, because she also can't fight back.
Yeah, but like there's something about well, it's like the fact that Dinah's kidnapped makes it so much worse than like someone like there's like levels where it's like the
Somebody who's there on purpose.
somebody who's there on purpose and works for literal like you killed my wife for me or my ex-wife for me like that
Mhm.
versus like Gru who's like I really need you to vouch for me within like the systemic injustice of like the
Mhm.
child care
It-
system or the court
Yeah.
system that's allowing me to, take care of, since he's the only person who's responsible in his family. So, like, even though legally he doesn't have a good claim to raising her, it's the only thing that makes logical sense, you know?
Hmm. Yeah.
So he's like able to like I don't know. They're coming to the table for like he's coming to the table for way better reasons than Mister Fucking Pitter. Is I guess my point.
Mr. Pitter is like directly administering drugs to like the kid he's supposed to be taking care of and stuff. Like, yeah, Mr. Pitter's not great. Um, but I don't know if he should be torture murdered for funsies. Like Vale said, for a little treat.
For a little treat. He needs a little
A
treat.
little treat. It's so funny. Okay, I'm sorry that like I totally derailed us, but it's so funny that we missed that.
Well, it's just there's something about Coil where it's like, well, duh.
Well, like yeah. Like I don't think I was surprised when we like get to that point, but I was like, "What?" Um
I wasn't like
like
shocked that he was evil because he seemed evil from the whole chapter, but it was still surprising that he's like just that sort of wantonly malicious, I guess.
yeah, like why does he need that? I don't know. It's just we'll see. He must have it's probably a ramp up, like at first he would just rob banks for fun and now he needs to,
At first, he was
uh,
just jacking it a little, and now, woo, he's out of
and now
control.
it's out of control.
Yeah.
I think we actually were at the end of that. We were just talking about Dinah and being sad.
Well, yes, but I did have these two quotes that I pulled out. They're the two direct quotes. It's morning, she asked, head rising. I feel like I just had dinner. Candy? And it's morning, she groaned, sitting up. I thought I just finished dinner. Candy?
Yeah.
Very
That
similar,
was a
but
good,
not identical.
very similar. Um it was like 30 minutes later or something in the second one.
Yeah, yeah, but I like that even the little things do change.
Hmm.
Um, like it would be good either way. It would be good if it was a direct thing in one way, but I think this is a little better.
Hmm.
So, and then we got Mr. Pitter. Already talked about him a bunch. So we can jump down to the powers, knowledge, and world building.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about this part?
Ugh, his base. He talks about how he like finagled the system. He like owns one of the companies that just builds the underground shelters in Brockton Bay. So he just like I don't know, like stole some paperwork or some shit and then like stole one of the bases for his own. Which is smart, I guess. And it's funny because Taylor noticed. She was like, this looks just like Coil's base.
Well, it's obfuscated under a construction site that looks defunct. So they've spent a bunch of resources, like either off the books or in some, like, misreported way that theoretically would have been for other construction. And then instead it's created this additional shelter that's thought to be undone. Like, to
Mhm.
be just, like, very barely constructed at all.
Yeah, and it'll be convenient with the Leviathan attack. Like nobody's gonna worry about it for a long time now.
Exactly, exactly.
Because like a lightning doesn't strike twice anyways.
Yeah.
And except when it does.
Yeah. It's such a funny saying since it's like literally the opposite of
It's just not even true.
Yeah, because
Um,
it becomes more likely to hit the same spot since the air gets ionized.
well, at least Endbringers don't go to the same place twice.
It's true. It's
But
true.
other bad stuff still happens. There's other S-class threats out there.
Yeah. So do we need to? Do you want to talk more about this at all, or just jump down?
Yeah, just that he's like, okay, the fact, I guess we can talk even more about his neglect of Dinah, like the fact that they're building like seemingly nice apartments, like whole homes for the travelers to live in or whatever while they're working for him.
Yeah.
And also the fact that he's building apartments for them and the travelers are like, "You're gonna solve our problems soon, right?" Because it's clear to me that they're like outie as soon as that happens.
Right. Yeah.
Um, so they should probably know a little better.
Yeah, well, the claim is that they're going to work for him till the end of his plan, at least. But the problem is with the threat of them leaving, like, even if he could solve it, I don't know that he would solve it until, like, they're ready. And, like,
Hmm.
I don't know that. Like, the thing is, he keeps rolling the dice over and over again, like, upping the ante every time until eventually he gets burned. And, like, I
Hmm.
think that he would try and do what some character kind of implies have, like, a really strong, like, on the leash, uh, person in Noelle.
Hmm.
Like, kind of use her in the same way he uses Dinah. Except, I mean, drugs specifically wouldn't necessarily work, but, like, emotionally trapping her somehow with Trickster.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, Coil's just a piece of shit.
Well, he's a piece of shit. He owns a lot of businesses. Um, that are not doing as well from the Leviathan attack, but like it's fine because insurance, and I'm sure that he like I don't think he probably didn't predict the Leviathan attack, but I'm sure he's like asks Dinah, "Hey, is anything well, did Dinah
Well,
know that
Dinah,
the Endbringers were coming?
no, because
Or can she not see them?
she can't see them that well. They cause like blind spots for her essentially, and I would guess that his
Hmm.
power isn't good at dealing with them like that well anyway.
Hmm.
But that's when the numbers started changing because she is able to see there while the Endbringer itself is a blind spot. She is able to see the things that will happen to the people around the fight, and the fact
Hmm.
that things have changed due to the Endbringer like rolling through. Like, I think it's kind of complicated.
Yeah.
It's like either there's a pinhole that she can't see through, or maybe there's light shining into her vision. Kind of. I'm trying to think of a metaphor that kind of.
Yeah, just a blind spot.
Yeah.
Where she can see everything around it going to shit. So like he probably had some kind of I'm sure he has like hella insurance, so he's not super worried about that. Um he's a businessman. But luckily his plan is more likely to win or to succeed after the Leviathan attack. So
I
not
think
too bad.
that's probably because the city infrastructure was so crippled that like
Yeah.
it threw things further out of whack, so they're more willing to take like big swings with uh well, I mean, I not to get too much into Coil's plans, but it just sort of sets him up well.
We know he's planning on taking over the city. I can only assume that that's what he means by his grand plan.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and so,
Yeah, I
yeah,
just don't want
like
to get
it's
into
just,
the nitty-gritty of like what he's going to do.
yeah, it's obviously like even if a lot of the heroes have died as well, so
True,
harder
true.
for them to fight back. And all of his have any of his subordinates, like the Undersiders, all survived. The Travelers didn't even interfere, and they all survived. And
He
then,
doesn't
like, I
mention
think
any of his people
Circus.
dying.
Yeah, so everyone else is good.
Cuz
But the
Circus is
heroes have.
alive, Trainwreck is alive, cuz we see him later.
Hmm.
I don't know who else we've seen who works for him. So
I think that's it.
yeah. Um, and then yeah, this one is the about Noel, about the full 7% lower. I mostly pulled it out because it's 7% of 16%. That's nearly half of all the percents.
Yeah.
So,
Uh, it was a big old drop. I was like 15. Like I would feel pretty good about 15% with like the people that he has running with him, you know what I mean?
and the
Like
fact
I
that he's
felt like
jamming the numbers up with all these different factors and stuff.
yeah, but the fact that it went down to 9%, I don't feel great about.
Yeah, I no longer feel any confidence. Um, And I mean, even 15, even with all his perks, though, it is still probably not ever going to get over 50%. So it's still dicey.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, it's just gotten bad. But yeah, the travelers picked up on the Leviathan coming for Noel, and later on in the book, that'll be Tattletale's direct idea of why Leviathan was there. So yeah.
Yep.
And then Arc 8 stuff. I wanted to, while we talk about the rest of things, I want to sort of review the Arc 8 a little bit and have
Mhm.
uh, all of the various speed draws go.
Oh,
I
sounds good.
Yeah.
Here's our first one with New Wave. This was at William's special request because this will be the first time and last time we see all of I guess not the first time, but the last time we see all of New Wave together because RIP to Shielder and who
Manpower.
else? Manpower. And then there was some damage done to
Mm,
Victoria and Amy's dad. And here's
yeah.
her sitting in the seat backwards, even though she has a dress on. So
She's too cool for school.
she's too cool for school. Um, I think this was, I think actually this is probably my second favorite drawing of the chapter. I think my favorite one is, of the arc, I mean, is Shielder, um, holding up all the water, which I was pretty happy with how that turned out.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like those two, but the Arms Master one I think is very riveting for most people. So.
Oh, good. The one of him laying on the ground pointing.
I meant the one. Well, I like that one too,
Oh,
but
the one of him fighting. Oh,
of him leaping.
I'm glad because I think I hate that one.
Well, I wasn't sure how you felt because you didn't mention it, and so part of me assumed you didn't like it because, well, it
Well,
is
I had a
you.
lot of I had a lot of trouble drawing Leviathan. With the way that he's described, I feel like it's a little difficult to draw him impressive looking. And that was like one of my struggles. And then like obviously with him being so big, like it pulls a lot more perspective than a normal sized people would have been.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
so
I don't know. I think that people really, with the scale that he's at in your drawing, I think that people can really envision the fight as it's described. Like I already can, but some people have a really hard time with the like translating the book fight in their head into like what's happening.
oh
And
yeah,
to
for
me,
sure.
this is
I
like
had to do a little
clarifying
bit
to
of
that.
I tried to scale him against Arms Man because I think Taylor calls him 30 feet tall. Taylor's always like, I'm so bad with guessing how tall things are. Damn bitch, you are. So I don't know if uh like here's Manpower sitting in his chair at a whopping 7 feet tall.
He's just got really long lower legs.
Yeah, I don't even know, dude. Why is he 7 feet tall? I don't think he should be 7 feet tall because why would his power affect his height?
Because
How many 7 feet tall people do you know, William?
I don't know that I've ever met someone who's 7 feet tall, like in my life. There are not
I
that many
I have
total people percentage wise that are 7 feet tall.
Yeah, very low percentage. But there's a lot of 7 feet tall people in this book.
Like when you think of, okay, I don't know how many 6'4" people you know, but when I think of someone who's 6'4", that's already like a giant as far as I'm concerned.
Well, 6'4" to is like I think the like max traditional height where you're like, oh, you're a tall person, but
But
you're
you're
not
not
like
like
they don't
huge.
they don't have to stoop in doorways and stuff. But I think
Right.
once you hit 6'6", that's when you start having to stoop and like it inconveniences your life.
Right, because everything's built for people like more our height.
Yeah.
I mean,
Um,
oh, mhm.
I didn't know if you wanted to talk about the themes of this arc, which I guess were death.
Yeah. Well, I like
Death and loss and loneliness.
I'm gonna show the number two art. I really like the color palette of the chapter arts. I'll just scroll through them kind of quickly. Uh,
Hmm.
the it's like the death and loss and loneliness. I think is captured. I mean, I'm not gonna include the candy plays in terms of the arts, but all of these other ones I think capture that mood and the themes and tone very well.
Thank you.
Um, yeah, back
Yeah, I
to the
pulled I don't know if
stages.
you know how I do, I pull the palettes because I'm really bad at coming up with my own color palettes. So I go online and I will find a picture of something that I feel is reminiscent of the arc, and then you can just like upload it into Procreate and it'll produce a palette based off of it for you. So that's what I do every time, and I did like a beach storm or whatever because I knew it was going to have a lot of like stormy colors and all the dark blues and greens and everything.
Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah.
Um, so this is like a huge jump in stakes for the book. Uh, I feel like if people have read through the end of Arc 8 and they're not invested yet, they're just not going to like the book.
Hmm.
Um, I do know several people who drop out in like Arc 10 ish because it's just like things slow down a lot for the next little while compared
Hmm.
to the like hyper violence and hyper emotional stakes of Arc 8. But
Yeah, I don't mind the slowness. I like to have a breather between like
yeah,
the
yeah,
fights and
same.
stuff because the fights are very and like difficult and I wouldn't say tedious, but a little bit to listen to when it's new and you're like less comfortable with the like writing style and powers and stuff.
Mhm. Yeah. Um and it's something that when you already know what's going to happen in the fight, you can pay attention to all the little nuances pretty well, but it is like it's almost like you have to bank the knowledge of the actual outcomes of the fight before you can get the fullness of stuff sometimes. Um, which is a crazy person. You know, I've read these chapters many times, etc., but I can see how it would be a barrier. And like
Hmm.
I I had like obviously a way different experience with Ward than with Worm, but like on Ward I felt like the stuff both is clearer and because I was reading it like with my eyeballs because I was reading the chapters as they came out. Like
Hmm.
if I didn't understand something, I'm already like a reader who's really slow and who has to go back and like I kind of have vision problems to do with the way my eyes move around the page and stuff. But like I would reread paragraphs a lot of the time, like not every paragraph, but many of them. So um
Yeah, I'm kind of just keep trucking along to be honest. Um,
I just like the way I parse stuff is not, I don't know, super effective, but like it has its perks.
Mhm.
But yeah, we got Shielder here.
R.I.P. Shielder. I hadn't when I had first read the chapter, I didn't realize that this was Victoria's, that this was New Wave Shielder. I don't know. I was like, here's some guy who does shields. I didn't realize it was him when I first read it.
When I when I first read it, I was connecting those dots already, and I was kind of just like, holy shit, like it's this guy.
Yeah, I just hadn't had the like ability to grasp on to all of the characters as quickly yet, and this was
Hmm. Hmm.
like we had seen him literally the first chapter of the arc, and that's it.
And this was in your
We I
first big push. Like I don't remember quite where you stopped before you restarted the book, but this was in like when you were still reading large chunks at a time right at the start.
mhm,
So I know you were kind of whipping through it at the very beginning.
yeah. That's how I have to read is I just like fly through it and then I'll figure things out later.
Right, right, yeah, yeah. Well, it's just I mean, I assume your perspective on a lot of things has changed a lot, given that you've had like one and a half reads of the book, maybe the beginning parts, like at this point, three essentially.
Yes. I've read up to this will be my third read all the way up till arc 20.
Hmm. Gotcha, gotcha. Um, yeah, so I'm sure that you've picked up on like loads more throughout at this point.
Hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. Just arc 8 has that impact, and I do think that the later arcs are the best ones. The ones that like some of the really I don't know. It's hard to even like pick favorites at a certain point because they're all doing such different things. But like arc 29 and 30 or so like impactful. Uh, but
Yeah.
but it 8 is kind of like 20, how 20 kind of really blows up the status quo as well.
Hmm.
But anyway, I'll stop going crazy over that.
Oh, you're
Other Arc
good.
8 stuff. What is other stuff you would like to say about Arc 8, if anything?
I don't know. I mean I enjoyed it a lot more this time because just the fights are really hard for me, but
Mm-hmm.
like I got to because I've read through the fight a couple times now, I did get to like acknowledge more of those like character beats and stuff, like Vista murdering some guy and the fact that Shielder protected Taylor and seemingly a whole bunch of other people that though Taylor doesn't mention anyone else specifically. And
She's still
then
like mega reeling at the start of the fight, you know?
yeah, and then there is a lot more focus on New Wave than I had like thought that there was or had remembered that there was. Like we watch Shielder die and his sister like start freaking out and then like she carries around Taylor after that point or whatever, which I mean I remembered her carrying her around, but I hadn't remembered that we watched like witnessed her watch her brother die.
Right, and that's why it is a little sad when things get lost in the shuffle because like I was focused on that stuff the first time I was going through. Like when she
Hmm.
says to them the like let's get him. Like that, I thought that
Hmm.
that line was incredible and then that gets echoed basically near the very end of the book and it was just like ugh, like heartstopper.
Hmm.
Cuz like in each instance, Taylor's just like lost. She's
She
theoretically
often
going to
is.
go do a thing, but like, um, yes. And Vale said that Arc 30 and 22 are his favorites. 22, like, Arc 8's interesting for sure, and it's very like status quo breaking. It's very like revolutionary for the book, but 22 is the one that I've listened to like the most. And it's like almost for my old job, it was almost perfect for the amount of audio I could listen to in like one day. So there were a lot of
Mhm.
days where it's just like, gonna listen to Arc 22 today. Like that's just how I'll get through the day. But um, yeah, we're on to the Amy. This is, I tempted you into several arts with the promise of Amy.
Uh, I like that I made all the cockroaches looking at her because I thought that was funny.
Yeah,
Um,
that is funny.
because I just like she does so many things unconsciously with her bugs that like I should try to play around with that when I can because subconsciously, I mean, if I said unconsciously, because like other people will say things like notice things about them that she does not notice. So you can really like I can take creative liberty with it, I think. Um in the future when we see more bugging. Because honestly, we haven't seen a ton of bugging. And like I don't know.
She
I
becomes
it
much
definitely
more
gets
bug oriented. I think the thing is that it gets magnified in your brain because it's kind of like, and I feel like the book is really good at this, but like even in the early arcs, like she's barely in the loft for like what, maybe a month total, but it's like
Mhm,
every time something happens, it feels so like big and important,
mhm,
that it like really sticks out. Like you really remember like the very few times that she really like has unabashedly good times with the Undersiders, for example, or like,
mhm,
just any given thing feels so like weighty. Um,
mhm.
uh, I don't know how to describe that exactly, but the book's very good at like making things feel like they matter or something.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I almost had forgotten to draw Tattletale on her crutches here, so I'm glad I caught myself before I inked it.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, "Oh my God." Well, I had like forgotten she was on crutches at all. I just was like, "Oh, I need to do a sassy pose," and then I went to review it to make sure, and I was wrong.
Yeah. You wanted her to be doing a Z snap, but she had her hands full.
Yeah, yeah, she had her hands full. She's still kind of in a sassy pose, as sassy as you can get on crutches.
Yeah. Oh man. This one's really good though. Like I love when you do group scenes, and this one had like a lot going on.
Thank you. It made me nervous when you asked me if that was Legend's hand on the right, because I was like, "Oh God, what did I mess up?" But
No, no, no. I just wanted to make sure that I was correctly interpreting the scene because I was like, this makes sense, except why would there be a left hand on the right? And then I'm like, it's white, so it's got to be Legend, right? And so I
yeah,
just
it's
wanted to
her
make sure
next
I
to her
wasn't
because
like,
he's
yeah.
right next to her because he had picked her. He had like picked her up into the air, and then I think he dropped her to blast Arms Man. And then, yeah, I wanted to draw this scene because I liked how much pointing was happening. It made it more dynamic because everyone's looking all like the Undersiders are all looking at Taylor, and then you know the Protectorate is going after Arm Man,
Yeah,
and
I
he did.
mean, I really like that theoretically the moment you captured there is exactly when he's yelling, "You should be looking down on her!"
Yes. And Gru's fully covered, which is funny. I like didn't realize he was fully covered during that scene because Taylor mentions it. He's like in distress and it's just all over her or all over him. So
Yeah, like she can tell, she and then later Aisha both have a really good sense for like telling through powers when a parahuman is like how they're feeling through their power, basically.
hmm
Um, yeah, I don't know. It's uh, it's at least interesting. It's she's very in tune with that side of things rather than normal human emotions.
yeah.
And here we have, of course, Lisa, and in the background
hmm
we'll get the monument. And there's tons of interesting world building, like the idea that legend says that this, Endbringer attack is why they're accepted, and like we see the monument stuff, and like
Oh Yeah.
You know.
I love the
Mhm.
like her everybody just kind of like it seems like Taylor completely forgets the villain and hero thing, which is why it's like so jarring when she is like comes to in the hospital and she is being treated poorly. Because like she's never
Well, she also
she
still
this is
like
like the
thinks of herself as like someone who is just undercover and like
yeah.
she's really
She like
disoriented
hasn't
and
she hasn't like formed that. And this was definitely like this that chapter is definitely like hugely influential on like her just deciding to fully identify as being a villain because she saw like how like the way that she was treated was so unacceptable to her and just like I don't know. She just like she was like this shit is crazy. She could not handle it.
yeah, but I mean like I also don't like like she kind of like has reason to it because it's just it was so horrible. As Greg says, spit on her. It was just like real cruelty in action. It's like why Vale is like more mad at that PRT officer than like most of the
And
people in the
anyone.
book because like it's just very mundane cruelty. Um,
Yeah.
uh, and then like beyond that, there's the like oh, so there's the like institutional like just shittiness of I guess we can go to the image of it of no one talking to her because they might get sued. So for like shitty like money based reasons, they're not willing to communicate with her and putting her in like way more
Hmm.
distress. Um, yeah, I don't know. There's a lot going on, and it's bad in terms of for our girl, and good in terms of story.
Yeah.
Oh yes, but people do like this. People really like the nanothorn effect as well. How it looks there. I love it.
Good. Thank you. I'd figured out some special effects on Procreate that I might be going too far with, but it has been really helpful with the like the weird effects like the nanothorn and stuff, so it should be helpful with with power stuff in the future rather than
Hmm.
drawing it manually.
Yeah. I'm trying to
Um,
think of any crazy powers that are coming up in terms of visuals, because like I think some of the craziest stuff you'll have to deal with is maybe like Genesis projections. Oh, there's a labyrinth scene that's gonna happen. That's gonna be like just it'll depend on what you pick, but could be very complex.
oh my God. Ugh, we'll see.
Greg says, I enjoy the Endbringers. They're original style kaiju, crystallizations of unstoppable forces of monstrous forms, or into monstrous forms. They have punchable faces, but in the end, punching Leviathan is like punching a hurricane.
Yeah.
Yep, yep.
He does have a
So,
punchable face with all those eyes.
yeah. Four eyes.
Four eyes.
Um, so I think we're done with the Arc 8 roundup. I feel like we've really neglected some of the previous roundups, but I liked the amount of time we spent on that and like the rambling nature of our conversation. But yeah, Greg says classic mother enemy, Four Eyes. Um, in the bonus section, we have New Year's resolutions. We're going to cook up some New Year's resolutions for the characters from their perspectives, and feel free to put some in chat or in the comments of the stream later if you're watching this back and not live. So I did not get that many down on the page. Weirdly, I was able to do audience participation questions in a snap. I did multiple because I came up with them so quick. Um, but for this, Coils is I'm going to keep the good streak I have going of only murdering the pitters of the world, not just everyone. Um, uh, and we could say these are New Year's from the point of the Leviathan attack. We're starting a new calendar post Leviathan year.
New Year, only pitters.
And then Lisa's is this year I'll spend more time on the comms and not keep myself on the battlefield all the time. We'll see how that goes. And then
She's
Alec,
always trying to be like, why do you want me out here? Like, what am I gonna do?
well, she's simultaneously doing that and also voluntarily going a lot of the time without being like
Yeah.
prompted. So it's like a combo, and she can't help herself either.
I mean, I wonder if it's just like she knows that Rachel, like at the start of her joining the Undersiders, would have like ripped her head off, so she just went along with it and then it just became routine.
Yeah, but there is a point where she like specifically says after an injury like I'm gonna take a back seat and be on the comms, and then she just doesn't. Basically,
Yeah.
it's crazy. Um, for Alec, I was gonna say something like I'm gonna do my best to stop doing the bad things that my team hates, but only the really bad things. Yeah, he's gonna do his
Only the
best.
worst. What do you think is that constitutes? What does he think is the worst?
Um, the
The
things that
murder?
I think the things that he's not allowed to do are the murder and all the dicey stuff as far as sexual assault, etc.
Yeah. Only stealing allowed now.
Yeah.
Robbery, mutilation, all okay.
So have you come up with any?
I couldn't think of any because I was like Taylor would totally just do a normal one. She'd be like I was literally like, Taylor would love to start journaling. Like she really wishes she had a journal and she'd have like a habit tracker where she tracks all of the times uh that she like goes out and runs or reads that day
And she'd do
or
really good
if
on the
somebody
running,
buys
and she'd
out.
hurt her own feelings on the journaling and the habit tracker itself, and the
Yeah, she'd be like, "Ugh, I like keep getting in fights and I haven't had any time to read."
yeah. I think it would just like reveal to her her own feelings of depression.
Oh my God. Poor Taylor.
And
Uh,
then what else? I'm gonna bring these into the light. I don't even need to
Unfortunately,
copy.
it would be unrealistic to oh my God, Sigma said murder, assault, arson, sexual arson, and other crimes, I'm sure. Uh, I don't want to know. Um, it would be too unrealistic to say that Rachel would have a New Year's resolution, unfortunately. But I feel like Gru would. He would be like, I want to learn Tai Chi or something. He'd do
Hmm.
Pilates.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's got to pick up a new set of skills. Like he keeps half learning different martial arts so that he can really kick people's ass with varied technique.
I think if he learned a full one, he like could be more successful, but I know he's just kind of
I
like,
think I think the
let's move
way
on to the next technique.
I think the way he does it is probably fine because he only needs to hand combat a little bit, and a lot of people he won't be able to affect that way. And he kind of like diversifying his skill set because of like how many different situations he'll be in is good. And he's not going to be in like a tournament fight ever. Like he literally goes into combat with a baseball bat a lot of the times, and he just like
Yeah.
beats people. So, like, spending time honing your baseball bat skills might be even more useful.
Oh my God.
Um,
He could start playing baseball.
that'd be pretty cool.
Pretty good.
Rachel will New Year's resolution. The thing is, I don't think she would make one.
She wouldn't make one, but she could spend more time with her dogs.
Even more, yeah,
Even more time with her dogs.
yeah. Arms Master, his resolution is gonna be to not get caught when he does a scheme.
Yeah, I mean, his would be like, I don't even know.
Don't ever let
He would
yourself get
have
played again.
he would have so many, I think is the problem. He would have like a full like a list. You know how some people do like 20 of them or whatever?
Yeah, but he's also in like full spiral mode, so it lends to that even more than normal. Because like he
Yeah,
he hasn't had a chance to come to grips with
with the
being
evil
revealed.
doing he did.
Yeah.
Just
Um,
a little bit evil. Okay.
what are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do?
And then other characters, Dragon, hers will be to
Try
uh
out dating.
try out dating. Yeah.
Yeah, I think hers is to see if to get herself out there and see if she has the capacity for romance.
For sure. Um, and then Miss Militia's New Year's resolution will be to sleep more often to stay grounded. Boom.
I was
Easy.
gonna say to get 30 minutes of sleep a night, like how people will be like, my goal is to get 8 hours of sleep a night.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair amount. That's not asking too much of her time.
Yeah.
So there we go. We got some good ones on the books. Um,
We'll see how they do this year
we'll see how they do.
with those.
Um, audience participation. The real one is what shenanigans would you get up to with Coil's power? And we can talk about ours in a minute after we see these. Um, Vale says, this is assuming it's not Parahuman's world where there are reasons to be careful, watchdog, etc. I'd use splits to day trade stocks, make enough money to retire, and enjoy myself. I'd use the power to keep safe in one reality, reading and resting, and in the other, I'd travel and explore. When I reach destinations, almost like a save point in game, I'd merge and split off again, set up more stock trades, and repeat. Nothing exciting, but I guess it would make relaxing much more relaxing. And that got a palm tree react from Sigma Jargon there. So,
That sounds similar. I'd probably do something like that too, Vale. Like nothing intense, but just like a good way to coast through life.
yeah, I think I'd use it on much shorter time scales. Like I'd use it to I'd use it for like a lot of stupid stuff, like to try out a ploy in a game. That's right. I'd be cheating with my power.
What the fuck?
I'm already living
And
cheat
you know
mode.
what?
Hmm.
Greg would still win, so.
Greg would still win, so it
Uh,
doesn't even matter. Like this is what I'm saying. But I think it's. I mean, even if you're not cheating, you can still double play the same game so that you can like get more experience out of an experience. You can talk to
yeah.
different people at a party. Like you can get more out of something, whereas Coil doesn't do it. Doesn't use it that way. Coil uses it
Mhm.
to get more like leverage and uses it to like I don't know, just various things like that. He's always just using it for these like reasons that will not soothe his soul.
Yeah, I was gonna say I would probably he does only use them like longer term, but I probably would use them short term in um like conflicts and conversations and stuff. I would Aisha my conversations a lot.
Yeah.
Um just like I wouldn't be able to help it, but I feel like that would also make me incredibly stressed because I'd be like, oh man, like I went with the wrong one or I should have done this or whatever.
Well, I
So
think what
I don't think
Coil
it.
does in a lot of situations is he literally like wholesale will or won't have a conversation with someone.
Yeah, exactly. And then he's just like, well, if it went badly, I couldn't have done anything different.
Well, he'll just restart the conversation and just like do it a different way. I
Yeah.
think that's how he kind of does it, which like is not necessarily something you'd want to do too much in like a normal life, but it would certainly be useful for, really shitty situations.
Yeah.
I need to tell you that your husband died. I need to tell you a different
He,
way that your husband died.
his husband passed away. That man you live with.
He doesn't live in your house anymore.
Yeah, he moved away, if some would say.
Yeah. And then Greg said, I would leverage my power's real strength, that I effectively duplicate thinker powers, and not just one thinker power, as many thinkers as I can convince to work with me. It goes like this: split timelines. In one, everybody goes about their normal routines. In the other, I gather as much information as I can. I spend money and political capital on more recalcitrant thinkers. Type up everything the normal timeline, cut the expensive timeline, rinse and repeat, using the information from the first cycle as a jumping off point. This doubles the output of thinkers I work with, more if I circumvent thinker headaches or other limitations. I am a one man think tank without committing a single crime. The downside of this is that it's this kind of scheme that probably gets me killed or worse. Rip. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
that's one of the big problems with like raising your head above water too much. But like, I think it's a great plan.
I was gonna say I hadn't thought about the fact that you can pay off so many people, like, and bribe so many people for information and then just cut it. Like, that's fucked up. Like,
Yeah.
you could just hand somebody like as much money as it takes for information or whatever, and then just cut the timeline very easily.
Oh yeah. It's
Wow.
genius. Genius.
Oh, that's why he's so rich, but you know why he can't do that now?
You can't
He's gotta
bribe
pay to
Taylor.
feed Noelle. No, you can't bribe Noelle to calm the fuck down.
You
You can
bribe with
only
meat.
bribe her with meat. I think that it must be Wagyu, like grade A Wagyu that she's eating.
What I'm thinking is that when the cameras turn off, she's just Kevin from the show Kevin Can Fuck Himself.
Oh my
And
God.
she's just yelling into the phone. Like, she's on a cell phone with Trickster just yelling, meats! Over and over again. Yeah.
Uh,
Um, Craig says more pigs. But anyway, so shenanigans I would do with Coil's power. Let me think. I would definitely just do like a Nick Cage in the minute or the movie Next, like those style shenanigans where he has a magic show because he can see into the future by 2 minutes at a time. So he like
mhm.
gets someone to say information and then he says the information and then it blows everybody's mind. Um,
Whoa!
so he's got like a shitty Vegas magic show. It's great. Um,
Funny.
anyway, so I do have two questions for next week. For the chapter 9.1, what do you think of the classification system for powers the PRT uses? And a bonus question for 9.1 is Weld your boyfriend? Um,
Yes.
and then chapter 9.2, given all the gadgets we see Flechette use, what minor piece of equipment would you want from Team Tinker? Yeah, so
Can't wait.
that's mostly what I got for you guys. Uh,
Um,
oh, we didn't hear what.
Sigma said,
Yeah.
wow. What I would say, she even gave a response in the channel. What did I say in the channel? I don't remember.
Oh shit! I
Uh,
didn't. Definitely pranking my employees with murder. Yes, sorry,
yeah,
I forgot to scroll
I
up
was
past
gonna
Vales.
say like not to put myself on blast, but I would probably murder people for fun. So like, I don't know.
So you would murder people like Coil does, or
Yeah, just like Coil.
you'd just be like Coil?
I would probably be just exactly like Coil, except like I would do less evil in my normal timelines. I would save my evil for my alt timelines, and then I would like get it out of my system and be good.
Look, I can imagine what you're saying. I just don't think that I would have it as my like main hobby like Coil.
Well, it wouldn't be my main hobby. It would just like, but like you gotta try it once.
I mean, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
Mhm.
Like, I'm not gonna pretend I'm some virtuous, amazing non-coil. But on the other hand, I just think it's kind of his only deal, his whole deal. It's like
Just
being
that like
paranoid and murdering people. Like that's his whole shtick. He doesn't really have a lot going on hobby wise, you know.
like Yeah, I think that the fact is that I would just go crazy so fast that I would not get the opportunity to do anything with his power, so I didn't have fun answers like everyone else. But like that's fine. That's just me.
See, the thing is, I think that you're starting from a very high point on a cliff, and when we push the wagon a little bit, it just starts careening down the side.
Yeah. It's like the like craziness that coil is, I would not be able to I would not be able to handle or cope with for a minute. So like I would just be done. Like done. I would probably go to the parahumans asylum and just like socially rule there with my power to impress everybody by always saying the right thing. Or, you know what? It would actually be not saying the right thing, but saying the second to least bad thing.
I just imagine you would be quiet most of the time, and you would like constantly be making small one
One-liners.
frame attempts to be
Oh,
like profound, and you're like very still whenever like you're, because you keep collapsing the timeline where you like move and start getting all animated, so you're very still most of the day, and then you'll like jump out and say the perfect one liner, and then you'll go back to being very still while you wait for a perfect attempt.
yes, I think that's what would happen is I would make so many jokes in one reality and then not do a joke in the other reality, and then if it doesn't land, I pull back.
Yeah.
But I would be at the asylum.
See, these are the kind of low stakes crimes that I would definitely be doing all the time.
This is not a crime.
That's why I couldn't save the power to be like paranoid with it, because like I would want, I mean, maybe if I was younger and crazier, I would have like some grand scheme, but I would want to play video games all night and sleep, and I would want to eat two different meals that were both expensive and only have to pay for one of them.
So good. I guess that's also what I would be do that the week before I make it into the asylum, that's what I'd be doing. I'd be doing a lot of reading and sleeping at the same time or watching TV and sleeping at the same time. And then a lot of like eating expensive meals in one reality and then eating like McDonald's for every meal in the other.
And you better believe that just like Vale, I'd be doing the stock scams so I don't have to work anymore.
Yes. Yes, day trading.
Yeah. And I mean, you can start it with some seed money of like just different one big all in gambles.
Yeah.
Because it's the whole thing where you just walk around the casino and you have one version of yourself that keeps making giant single all in attempts at different games like roulette or whatever. Yeah. Um but yeah, murder shenanigans and being crazy.
Yeah.
I am going to. I think we're gonna kind of outro things. I was going to turn on the music in a second and maybe read half the links before I start the music. But do you want to say anything before I begin reading the links and so forth?
No, go for it.
All right. This weekly live stream has the music for Arc 8 of the Ulgonsah Witches, A Strong Force by CO.AG Music, which is, again, free music that you can get on YouTube, and only a few of their tracks have copyright, and it's very obvious which ones. Um, and our Discord server link can be found in the stream description as well as the channel description. Start the music now. And the author of the work being discussed can be supported on Patreon at patreon.com/wildbow. The full text of the work is available for free online at parahumans.wordpress.com. And there is also a fan-made audiobook of the entire work at audioworm.rain-online.org. Thank you very much, Victoria, for being in this. And I know we didn't quite start on the first of the year or anything last year, and I usually don't super date these, but I mean, we've hit the end of the first year. Pretty cool.
Awesome.
Well, thanks, Vale. Thanks, Greg, and have a good week, guys.